With VEB08's release date getting very close in Japan, I wanted to take the opportunity to look at Blue Storm Dragon Maelstrom as a primary boss one last time. Maelstrom is by and far one of my favourite boss units in Vanguard, so it really hurt with the release of VEB02 Champions of the Asia Circuit that Aquaforce was a bit of a disappointment. In retrospect, Aquaforce, and especially Maelstrom, being a disappointment is history repeating itself, as is the recently revealed Blue Storm Supreme Dragon Glory Maelstrom being good and arguably changing direction. The original Aquaforce, the original Maelstrom build, took till BT15 and the Blue Storm archetype fleshing out to become fully playable. Till then, Maelstrom was really clunky and highly dependent on Diamantes to get the most out of Aquaforce's gimmick, position shifting. The rest of the clan was balanced for a 10,000 grade 3 meta that never existed. Meanwhile, Glory Maelstrom was paired up with Transcore Dragon for an ultimate break ride deck that threw Aquaforce's gimmick to the wind and went for a last hour OTK. Maelstrom V and Aquaforce V aren't terribly different in concept to the originals. Pressure generated from Maelstrom, more attacks than normal at lower power, but the game itself is very different, meaning the execution is. The clan is fully in the Tidal Assault method of generating more attacks, rather than mixing it up between Basil and Tidal types. While Maelstrom isn't generating power for himself, rather he's generating pressure for others. Likewise, stand triggers don't exist, and due to how much the game as a whole differs now, Aquaforce finds it much harder to punch through or even do Death of 1,000 Cuts, the latter of which could very easily grind through many clans. When I originally made V Aquaforce with Maelstrom, I found it awkward at best, much like the original BT08 Aquaforce, but lacking the same amount of charm. The best part of the deck was Tier Knight Theo and Battle Siren Viviana, giving units pressure to at least try to dry up the opponent's hand, but without true +1s to counterbalance fueling the Excel Circle, the deck was not fun. Naval Gazer Dragon, the trial deck card, had much more success, as despite not having pressure, it at least had more forward momentum, manually standing rear guards. Coming back to it recently, things have changed a bit. Promos have come out, and the second round of gifts have been released. Excel 2 I won't dwell too much on. It's a fairly big boon. Being able to recoup the costs of fueling the Excel Circle is pretty important. The deck really couldn't afford to fuel it with the lack of true +1s at its disposal. The lack of power in the circle doesn't really hurt, as it still gets over the 13,000 force hump, which is all that is needed. 5,000 shields aren't really that relevant anymore, so 10,000 and 5,000 are essentially the same. 15,000 being the second stage of shielding now. You aren't easily reaching 24,000. I think it's important to start by analysing Maelstrom himself. What does Maelstrom actually do? What is he trying to achieve? Maelstrom has two skills. One to pump up the front row by 3,000, which is important to reach higher stages and shouldn't be understated, but much more importantly, he gives pressure to rearguard attacks 3 and 4 directed at the Vanguard so that he can restand himself. To what end, though? A restanding Vanguard is great and all, especially one who doesn't lose Twin Drive, a real rarity in Vanguard V, but he has no pressure himself outside of something giving it to him. There is no reason to guard him at all by base level. He's just another attack. Normally this is where you just say critical triggers and call it a day, but we also have to consider front triggers and rear guards. I want to start by pointing out that both our fourth enablers, Algos and Tidal Assault, want to attack first. Algos has to, and Tidal must if he doesn't want to suffer repercussions for attacking later. It's actually not that big of a deal. It's not like we have to attack the Vanguard, they can go after an Interceptor, and they resand. So when Maelstrom attacks, if he does hit a front trigger, they can gain full bonuses from it. These are the second chunk of the deck, and set up the first part of the attack frame. Either of them, then Maelstrom. This is only really notable for pointing out we aren't restricted to critical or front triggers just yet. I want to take a step back to Grade 1. I mentioned that Theo was a core aspect of the deck, because he makes up for a flaw in Maelstrom. Maelstrom has no innate pressure. Theo gives it to any attack he's involved in from Wave 2 onwards, For Maelstrom, he threats to give attack 3 or 4 a total 11,000 power buff between this and Maelstrom's own CB1 effect. Given that your average rearguard column is 17,000 base, a 9,000 grade 2 with an 8,000 grade 1, this would make it 28,000, and even against 4s, 20,000 to stop. The amount of cards that can block it for 1 slimmed down to just 4 per deck. Heals. Attacks 3 and 4 already have pressure via Maelstrom, but it's not like more pressure would hurt, and does amount to win more. It's also worth noting that Theo in front of another 8,000 grade 1 doesn't make the worst numbers, if he's affected by another copy of himself or not, all thanks to Maelstrom. Base 16,000 becomes 19,000, the right numbers to force 10,000 versus anything, then becomes 27,000 when affected by another copy of himself to force 20,000 versus Excel and Protect, 15,000 versus Force, not accounting for grade 4. Theo isn't alone though. In Japan there exists a promo we don't have in English yet. Battle Siren Parthenia. If attack 1 or 2 hits a Vanguard, CB1 kill an opponent's rearguard. This sure as hell gives Maelstrom pressure, but not only him. She allows your Algos or Assault on Excel to attack the Vanguard with pressure. You do really want Tidal to not kill your CB, but the more we can eat up the opponent's hand, the better. Plus, if she does manage to trigger, she still takes them down by 1 card. The most interesting thing with Parthenia is that she doesn't have to be involved in the battle. It just has to take place against the Vanguard. Finally, we have Battle Siren Viviana, who has a similar skill to Theo. If she's involved in Battle 3+, and it hits the Vanguard, she can go into the Soul to draw you a card and gives one of your units plus 3,000, which gives some survivability. The buff is somewhat relevant, pushing Excel Circle Grade 2 up to 20,000. It's not the most useful of skills. You would really just prefer a full back row of Theos. It's not really a threat at all, but it's better than nothing and lessens the reliance on Theo. This is where the key problem comes in. Maelstrom's second swing hasn't been affected. We can give swing 1 pressure to do something, but not swing 2. There is a grade 2 promo, Tier Knight Halpalos, that can do it, but he sacks himself to give the Vanguard 10,000 and threat to draw a card, which is neat, but the card is awkward. The 10,000 is for the turn, the draw is for the battle. It's not really worth the hassle. It makes the attack patterns very strange. The only solace we can really take is when Maelstrom's second swing takes place, providing we have a full board. Our pattern is going to be the following. 1. Tidal or Algos. 2. Maelstrom boosted by Theo. 3. Rearguard 1. 4. Rearguard 2. 5. Tidal or Algos. If Maelstrom does hit a front trigger on his second swing, he's affecting either only himself and Tidal/Algos, or himself, Tidal/Algos, and Rearguard 2. It's not full benefit, but it's better than nothing. It still does really feel like critical triggers would benefit the deck far more than front triggers, as it allows Maelstrom to not only threaten efficiently, but ramp up damage faster and not feel like it's wasting front triggers attacking after Rearguard 2. In all honesty, I think Maelstrom is just missing a component. Something that gives either the Vanguard or just him on Vanguard pressure regardless of what attack it is, or something like Parthenia, but a Vanguard that attacks 4+, much like, ironically, his original effect. Something that just gives him his original effect would be both hilarious and useful. In all reality, the fact he doesn't have pressure on the second swing shouldn't really matter. One drive check, which is what other freestanding Vanguards have, has 23% less chance of hitting a trigger, going from 55 to 32% chance. It's still a third of the time, but Maelstrom retains his 55% chance to gain plus 10,000 to himself and Algos/Tidal. It's also your 4th attack directed at a Vanguard that turn, the first Tidal Algos being more likely directed at an Interceptor. They're either damaged or are dropping hand fast. Likewise, it's not like you can't use Diamantes as Rearguard 1 or 2, who can restand himself for a 6th attack. The general consensus back when Asia Circuit was released was that Maelstrom and Naval Geyser were different builds. Looking back at Aquaforce now, I'm not so sure. While there is a definite argument for rainbow triggers, Maelstrom can run front triggers perfectly fine. I also think that Aquaforce would benefit from the now commonplace 12, 11, 10 lineup, as Grade 1 has never been something Aquaforce needed massive amounts of, and it is an absolute nightmare to ride Diamantes, as it has always been. While I think it's far too late for one last tech, Glory Maelstrom is not that far away, I am rebuilding my Aquaforce deck for the last few times I can play it in this form before I shift to Glory Maelstrom.